Everyone, and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for September 19th, 2024. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Hardy.
Here.
Mr. Tuckfield.
Here.
Mr. Marley.
Here.
Ms. Smith has an excused absence and is not here, obviously. Mr. Spatafora.
Here.
Mr. Oliver.
Here.
And Rich Bentley here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Spatafora?
I move to excuse Commissioner Smith from all roll call votes this evening.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. All right, approval of previous meeting minutes. Is there any discussion?
After,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, after reviewing some of the comments, earlier comments, minor, they've all been picked up. I would move, if there's no other discussion, to approve the
Okay.
minutes.
Motion by Mr. Bentley to approve the previous meeting minutes,
And I'll support.
supported by Mr. Meyerly. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Approval of tonight's agenda.
Unless there's an addition or amendment, I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda by Mr. Meyerly,
Support.
supported by Mr. Tuckfield. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. All right, on to old business. And we'll start with the site plan and special land use one-step party store located on the southwest corner of 21 Mile Road and Garfield. Section 31, Jenan Keikos petitioner, permanent parcel number 0831-226-007. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. The site, as you mentioned, is at 21 in Garfield. It was before you at the last meeting, and we requested it be tabled to this meeting because they needed a couple variances. So they did go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. One of their variances was denied, so the plan that they have on file can't be approved until that either that variance is granted, which again, it was already denied, or they resubmit. They took until this morning to get back to us to find out how they want to move forward. Their intentions originally were to repurpose the building. They didn't want to have to tear any part of it down and convert it into a gas station. Obviously, with the variance being denied, that's probably not going to happen, so they're going to redraw their plans and come back with an updated plan. And because they're not ready for that this evening, they are requesting that we postpone or table this item to the November 12th meeting.
Okay. Before we do the postponement, Commissioners, do you have any comments on this item? Okay. Do we have a motion to postpone until 11/12?
I'll make that motion, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
motion by Mr. Spatafora,
I'll support.
supported by Mr. Meyerly. Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Spatafora.
Yes.
Mr. Marley.
Yes.
Mr. Oliver.
Yes.
Mr. Hardy.
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. And Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, on to new business. Site plan, architectural stainless steel access drive located on the northwest corner of 23 Mile Road in Garfield. Section 18, Bruno Fucarelli, petitioner, permanent parcel number 0818400009. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. Those of you may be familiar with this architectural stainless facility. Has been around for quite a while. It was built in, I believe, the 1990s. At the time, it was understood that someday Garfield Road would go through, which actually just this morning, Garfield Road is now open, for those of you who don't know that. But as you can see on the screen behind you, their existing driveway is extremely close to that intersection, making it almost impossible to make a left turn. So when this was approved in the 1990s, they got an approval conditioned on that when Garfield Road did come in, that they would have to go back and add a connection out to Garfield Road. And they're going to make some other minor changes on their site as well. So that's what they have submitted. However, Mr. Fucciarelli indicated to us late last week that he would be traveling out of the country and was unable to attend. So he's asking that this be tabled until the next meeting.
Okay. Again, before we do a motion on this item, commissioners, do you have any comments?
That was to postpone till next week?
Postponed until
To the next meeting,
10-1.
which is October 1st.
October 1st. Okay. Do we have a motion on this item?
I'll make that motion, and we postpone it till the October 1st meeting.
Okay, motion to postpone the architectural stainless steel access drive site plan until October 1st by Mr. Meyerly,
Support.
supported by Mr. Oliver. Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Well, Mr. Marley,
Yes?
Mr. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes, Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
and Mr. Spatafora.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, motion passes unanimously. Next item, extension of time for preliminary plan Wellington West, located on the south side of 23 Mile east of Romeo Plank Road. Section 16, Salvatore Deanna petitioner. Permanent parcel number is 08161000023. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. This is a single-family development that was approved previously by this Planning Commission. At this time, they are looking to get an extension of time for 1 year. As you know, the ordinance allows them to request an extension of time for 1 year or 2 years. They're specifically requesting a 1 year extension of time. They did not indicate a reason why 1 year over 2 year, other than that they obviously haven't gotten started on this development yet. I'm not sure if they're even in engineering or how far along they are in engineering, but they felt confident that 1 year would be enough. It does sound like they have some permit issues with Eagle that they're working out, which has caused some of the delay. And with that, staff has no concerns. There's no zoning ordinances that have changed that would affect this.
Okay. Is the petitioner in the audience for this item? Extension of time? Okay, then I'll move to commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, we missed this, I think, in approval of the agenda, but just technically, this location for Wellington West, it appears in section 16, it's located on the south side of 24 Mile Road, east of Romeo Plank, instead of 23, so.
That's correct.
Motion to just make that adjustment in the agenda. As
Okay.
far as the extension of time, I can state with confidence when it comes to Eagle from personal experience in the work that I also do. Right now, it's taking quite a lengthy period of time for various different developments to go through the state of Michigan, particularly when it comes to a permit for their water main and their water supply services. So that could be one of the reasons why, but you're seeing a lot more of that throughout the region. And those are just some of my comments on that.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I think there might have been a motion on the floor. I'd be happy to second it if necessary, to amend the agenda to correctly reflect the 24 mile as opposed to 23.
Okay, do we want to make, okay, we can do the motion by Mr. Spatafora to correct it from 23 Mile to 24 Mile. Seconded by Mr. Tuckfield. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anybody opposed? Motion passes. All right, so do we have a motion on the extension of time for the 24 Mile in Romeo
I
Plain?
got one quick question.
Yes.
For Mr. Brock. Mr. Brock, did they understand that a 2-year extension is available?
They do understand that.
Okay, so they just feel confident that they're gonna get this off the ground in a year?
They certainly feel confident that they will.
Okay,
All right,
all right. We offered.
We did.
With that, I'll make a motion to extend the time for Wellington West for 1 year, starting, when do you want that to start?
I believe it's October 1st is when it was set
October
to
1st.
expire.
Okay.
And I'll second
I'll
it.
second that.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Bentley, call the roll for the extension of time.
Okay, just a sec. Who supported that?
Mr. Hardy and I both spoke
Yeah,
at the
we
same
did
time,
together, yeah.
but we'll go to Mr. Hardy seconded.
Okay, I just wanted to get clear. Okay, Mr. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Mr. Spatafora,
Yes.
Mr. Marley,
Yes.
and Mr. Bentley, yes.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Next item is the PUD General Design Plan, Filling Station and Retail Center, located on the southwest corner of 23 Mile Road and North Avenue, Section 23. Brasco Oil Company. Petitioner, permanent parcel number 0823-226-015. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. So this is kind of a unique situation. I think everybody's familiar with 23 and North Avenue. There's a BP station that has recently closed. That site is set for redevelopment for a larger gas station and a small retail plaza that I'll show you here in a second. I'm sure you saw it in your packet. So this was actually approved, a PUD General Design Plan was approved in 2018 for this site. Then they had a site plan that was approved shortly thereafter, and they started in engineering. During the COVID pandemic, they slowed down a bit. Their site plan went expired, but they continued through engineering. Typically, we wouldn't allow them to continue with engineering with an expired site plan, but I think the confusion of the pandemic allowed them to continue with their engineering of the site. So once they realized that, we all realized that they needed to update their site plan, the first thing I wanted to confirm is, does this site plan match the general design plan associated with the PUD? And lo and behold, when the PUD general design plan was approved, there was no agreement with it. There was a design plan, but no agreement ever existed. So essentially what we're doing is going back and cleaning up a mistake that the township made and the applicant made back in 2018 by not including the PUD agreement as part of their general design plan. So I'll walk you through the development now, but essentially the PUD is looked at like a special land use, and given, and I think you all know the standards, but given that it's already a gas station, they are making it slightly larger, but it doesn't really impact any nuisances. The use already exists at that location, and it's going to be operated in a manner similar to what's already there. That being said, the PUDs are required to have at least 15% of net developable area of land dedicated to open space. They have 31%. The detailed landscaping will come at a site plan review, which most likely will be either at the next meeting, should this be approved, or the one shortly thereafter, because they're very far along in this process. All of their setbacks are shown and acceptable. The parking counts and locations are acceptable. They have the 2 loading zones, both acceptable, meeting the ordinance. The drive-through has 10 stacking spaces, which is more than required. There's a 19.5, typically a 20-foot drive lane on the south side of the building. That was part of something that was approved originally with this, and they do list that as a condition in their agreement, and staff is comfortable with that at this time. And the call box is shown in accordance to the agreement that they've drafted with the PUD general design plan. That being said, staff is recommending approval of this PUD general design plan.
Okay. Is the petitioner in the audience?
Yes.
Would you please come up? Go to the table for us, please. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ali Bazi, address is
Hold on just a minute. Sir, let's go ahead and grab one of those chairs right behind you. Okay, great. All right, go ahead. Both of you will have to state your name and address.
Ali Bazi, 5880 West Road, Washington Township.
Okay. And sir, your name and address, please?
Oldie Vittens, Vittens Engineering, 44275 Brandywine Road, Canton, Michigan.
Okay. And do you have anything you'd like to share?
No, I concur with everything the planner had to say, and unfortunately with COVID, things just took a little bit longer to progress.
Okay. Make sure you're speaking right into the microphone.
Okay,
Just so we can hear you.
absolutely.
Okay. All right, commissioners. Questions?
I got a question.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes, sir.
The original building, I'm assuming is going down.
Yes, sir.
The tanks in the ground that were there when they set that up, what's the plans for the tank?
So we're going to remove the tanks and put new tanks in, and new piping and new lining and everything.
So basically, you're taking this right off the
Yes, sir.
map and starting fresh.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Duckfield?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe last time we looked at this, which has been a few years now,
Yes, sir.
there was a couple of prospective tenants that you were pretty confident you were going to get. I'm just curious what your status is of tenants or leased out space.
Currently, we have Tim Hortons scheduled with the drive-through, and the other tenants we have not started to solicit any prospects yet. Once we start, the construction, we'll know probably where we're going to go with that.
But Tim Horton, I think that was one you had mentioned last time. That's still there, and that
That is
tenant's
correct.
still prospective. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, anyone else? Mr. Spatafora?
Yeah, for our council, Mr. Aloya, is the PUD agreement like in final form now, or was there still some more revisions to be worked out?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Spatafora. The PUD agreement is on the township form. It's a form that Aloy Law created for the township. We have reviewed several drafts with the petitioner, and we're satisfied with the form as presented.
Thank you.
I did just have one other question for Mr. Aloya. Mr. Aloya, is there any items on this PUD agreement that we should be paying attention to? Granted, it's on our form, but there's always the variables that go with each area. Is there anything specific that you would note that would be uncommon for the form PUD that we have?
I think Josh should maybe confirm this, but the original plan called for no detention pond or retention pond, correct?
Correct.
And so we were consistent with the original approval, and the way that we looked at this is we were simply documenting what that was. So there was nothing unusual in this development otherwise. I know that I think they're keeping the sidewalk, the pre-existing sidewalk on one of the sides, but other than that, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I went back a slide so you can see the areas kind of around. If you can see my cursor up there, these are bioretention. So this is, and they're also near the river, but there's bioretention here that serves a similar function to the detention basin.
And then I guess I'd have one other question for Mr. Box. I know at around this particular time, we saw a number of fast food call boxes, and I think there was a number of different arrangements relative to when it was too short of a distance to try to mitigate sound. There does not appear to be any at this location. I do remember reviewing it, but was there anything in the original plan that was done to mitigate the sound in addition to the distance as it exists?
The original plan didn't have anything in it. Again, there was no agreement attached to it, but the location of the call box is in the same location generally as it was previously.
Okay, and that is currently roughly a couple hundred feet off of the east frontage onto North Avenue, I believe.
Correct. Correct. You can go back. It's actually circled right there.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Box. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Anyone else? Mr. Bentley? Go
Yes,
ahead.
just a couple of questions, and it appeared that we're looking at the PUD agreement, correct? When I reviewed the Exhibit C list of conditions, first of all, the question was, there is some, items 6 and 7 are in red, which the items are reflected on the plan, a 19.5 foot, clearance on the drives. And I didn't know whether that was part of the original and things changed. And so I wanted to ferret that out. As well, I think there was a discussion about the noise barrier board being applied in item number 2. Noise barrier board is to be provided on the southeast of the menu board call box as shown on the general design plan of the property. It does indicate that there's 2 boards. One's on the southeast. There's also one on the southwest, southwest. So I wanted to see if that could be clarified or confirmed in the conditions, because it is shown on the plans.
And there is a board shown on there too, actually.
Yeah, so the board is shown on the plan, as you see here, and they actually have,
Yeah,
if you
2
can see my
locations.
cursor, one is just a display that's not a call box, I believe. I'll defer to the applicant. And with regards to items 6 and 7, they're in red. So those are items that were approved as part of the general design plan previously. The 19 and a half feet met the ordinance at the time. They no longer would meet the ordinance. That's why they're in red. Those would be new items in the sense that they weren't called out previously because they met the ordinance previously, and that additional half foot would be required typically now.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much. Yes, and the noise barrier, as it indicates there, being upside down, it does show the 2 locations, so it is clear there.
Correct.
But it's not confirmed in writing on the list of conditions, which I thought might have to be done. So,
So if it's called out on that this drawing is attached?
I believe it is attached.
Yes, it's
Yes.
attached.
So that, I don't know that it has to be listed as a condition if it's incorporated into the concept plan.
Yeah, and it does, as you say, it calls it out that there's going to be a call box in that location, which they show, it's called out in their list of conditions and it's shown on their plan. The second one is not a call box, it's just a display board only, there's no
No.
speaker.
The note indicates proposed noise barrier board. And it has 2 arrows going to both locations.
That is correct. So we are, at the time, it was brought up in regards to the noise. So we proposed to put up noise barriers at those 2 spots that would mitigate any sound outside of the call box. So that is something we're going to do. It is noted on the plan, and hopefully, as we move forward, that it's part of the requirement.
Great, I'm glad you included that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then the only other question I had is, I believe in the document, I also read that there's an 8-foot walkway on the east side as well as the north along 23 Mile, but they're only partial. On the drawings, it goes from 8 foot and then it reduces down to 5 foot. And
That's correct. So it's a little bit hard to see because it's behind the blue line here. But basically the 8 foot goes from about this driveway all the way across. This is already existing and it goes down to here where it tapers down to 5 foot to meet what was anticipated at the time it was originally built. And at this time, we're allowing them to maintain what's existing. And at some point in the future, if and when the 8 foot is installed on the adjacent property, it would probably be the township that would come back in and expand the whole thing to 8 foot. But as part of their plan, the little gap here between this other driveway, they would be installing here.
my drawings that were issued to me indicate it is 8 foot from that westerly property line to about the center of the property on the north end, and then it goes back to 5 foot, and it's dimensioned as 5 foot.
The entire thing is already 8 foot. It's already constructed.
Okay, so it has been changed from what this drawing shows then.
I think the continuation on 23 Mile going west is 8 foot.
Yes,
So that is correct.
but it's 5 foot on the east end of that north.
Just in front of the old filling station. And then once we get across the one drive, it goes to 8 feet, and then we're gonna continue it as 8 feet.
Okay, it shows here almost half of the distance. Actually, 332 feet from the west,
Oh, there it is, Aldi.
from the west lot line. Because it dimensions it apparently.
That solid blue line's kind of covering up the sidewalk a little bit. It's hard to see, but it is 8 foot for,
Yeah, I don't have the blue on my drawing, so.
I was gonna try to remove it, but it doesn't, it looks like it's embedded in the picture.
It's in the packet we received.
Yep.
Yeah.
this is 8, and this was 8.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's,
So,
the
But are
existing
you
sidewalk is
saying-
what's gonna remain. What's there currently is what's going to remain.
Okay.
if I may, so the sidewalks and the approaches were installed by the road commission.
Correct.
And we granted them the additional right-of-way to do that when they expanded 23 Mile at the intersection there. So
Okay.
that was done by the road commission.
Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Commissioners? All right, at this time, I would like to open this item up to the public with a motion.
I'll make that motion. We open it
Motion
to
by
the
Mr.
public.
Byerly,
Second?
seconded by Mr. Spatafora. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. If you're in the audience and you'd like to come and share your comments or questions about item, is it
7C.
item C?
7C, yeah.
Yeah. Come to the podium, state your name, your address, and share your thoughts. So is there anyone that wants to speak on this item here? Anyone?
Yeah, we got somebody.
Okay, good.
At 6:57?
It's 6:57. And you have 4 minutes, sir.
Paul Ferretti. I live on 22800 23 Mile Road, Macomb. Just want to make sure that the west end, where the blue line is, that you still have a 8-foot screen wall going up?
Okay. We answer
Yes.
we answer all the questions, and I should have said this before, at the very end. So once we collect everything that everybody said,
Okay.
we go to Mr. Box,
That
and
was all
then
I
we go to the commissioners. So thank you very much. Anyone else? Come on up, sir.
Okay, my question to you is,
Name and address first, sir.
name is Harold Walsh, address is 46531 Oak Lawn. I'm at 21 and North. My question is, you know eventually you're going to be widening at North Avenue to 5 lanes. Are you taking that into perspective? Or is there going to be the sidewalk right on top of North Avenue after it's getting widened?
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone? All right, then at 7:01, we'll go ahead and close the public
So
portion.
moved.
By Mr. Oliver,
I'll support.
seconded by Mr. Byerly. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Box.
Yes, to answer the first question, the screen wall, yes, it is still proposed. I will say it's 6 foot, not 8 foot. That's the standard in the township, is 6 foot
There's an
masonry wall.
existing wall right
Sir,
now.
you need to speak into the microphone for me.
Ole Vittens, Vittens Engineering. There's an existing wall that's there now,
It's on the other side.
and we're gonna extend it, across the vacant property, and we're gonna match the same style of wall, and that wall that's existing is 6 foot in height.
Okay, thank you.
And as I said, that's the township standard is the requirement for a 6 foot masonry wall.
Right.
With regards to North Avenue being widened to 5 lanes, I would agree that's likely sometime in the future. Is it, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? That's not really our decision. But I believe at this time, the road department has all the right-of-way that they would need to expand it to that point.
Okay, good, thank you. Back to the commissioners. Any other comments? All right, do we have a motion on this item?
If there's no further comments, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion
Okay.
to approve the PUD general design plan for the filling station and retail center located on southwest corner 23 Mile Road and North Avenue in section 23. Permanent parcel number 08-23-226-015 pursuant to the discussion by this commission and the department reviews and given the history of this particular project.
Okay. Mr. Box, this is not an approval, this is a
This
recommendation.
is a recommendation to the
Yeah,
township
I'll
board.
correct my motion for a recommendation for approval.
Motion corrected. All right, do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll support.
Supported by Mr. Meyerly. Okay, Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
I will. Mr. Spatafora,
Yes.
Mr. Meyerly,
Yes.
Mr. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes, and Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Next item on our list is rezoning from residential one-family urban R1 and agricultural AG to residential multifamily low-density R2L. Parcels 0815-200-016, 0815-200-017, and 0815-200-009, located on the southwest corner of 24 Mile Road and Card. Section 16, Card Road Land Development LLC petitioner. Permanent parcel number 0815-200-016, 0815-200-017, and 0815-200-009. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. The site is located, as you said, 24 Mile and Card Road. It is across the street from an existing residential community, the Hartford, and it is about a quarter mile or perhaps less to the east of the existing landfill. The applicant is, as you said, looking to rezone this to R2L. There are 3 parcels, as you see on the screen behind you. They're separated by the black dashed lines. The furthest north parcel is much larger than the other 2. And they are currently zoned R1 and AG. A couple of them have different zonings, but they're looking to rezone all of them to R2L, which is residential multifamily low density. The surrounding zoning is to the north is agricultural, to the south is agricultural, to the east is residential one family, and to the west is agricultural. Undeveloped land currently to the east, even though it is zoned R1 residential one family, that's the Hartford. It's actually a planned unit development or a PUD. Obviously, it's not a single family development. That's just the underlying zoning. The PUD would override that. That's how Hartford was created. And to the south, the existing use is one family residential in undeveloped land, which I believe you can see at the bottom of your screen. The very wooded piece there, heavily wooded piece, is actually for sale currently. And then to the north is across 24 Mile. There's some agricultural uses. The primary thing that we look at for rezoning, so again, there's no plan associated with this. It's strictly a rezoning. There's nothing, no development to look at this evening, just rezoning. And the master plan does in fact call for this to be R2L or residential up to 6 units per acre. Across the street, again, the Hartford would be equivalent to about 9 units per acre. The master plan shows that, as well as the property to the west being 6 units per acre, some to the north being that, and some to the north being single family, and some to the south being single family. Considering that it does in fact match the master plan, at this time staff is in support of this request.
Okay. Is the petitioner in the audience? Again, sir, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name's Tom Callis. My business address is 31350 Telegraph Road, Suite 201, and that's in Bingham Farms, Michigan.
Okay. Did you have something you'd like to add tonight, sir?
Yes, so we are here this evening seeking rezoning of the subject parcels indicated by Mr. Box. He did give an accurate reflection of the rezoning request and what we are seeking. The R2L is a low-density multifamily, as you are aware. It is consistent with your 2022 master plan and land use, calling for approximately 6 units per acre in this designated area. So under the R2L that we propose, what's important, especially in today's economy, with high interest rates, exorbitant costs to build a house, material costs, land costs, we want a situation where you can have a variety of different housing types and residential uses. The R2L does allow that. In fact, in the actual ordinance of R2L, it states in part that the requirements of this district are intended to recognize that various forms of site development are desirable in order to provide a wide range of choice of living environments. And so that's what we seek to do here. So because this is such a large site, the 3 parcels together, we envision having multifamily, such as duplexes, fourplexes. It'll be market-driven for the most part, and because it's such a large site, we don't know exactly how it's going to be laid out, but it will be developed, probably in phases over time. But it will be market-driven and cater to consumer demand and preferences. And under R2L, you can, in addition to the multifamily use, you can even have elderly housing if that's an option and if the market so demands. So we feel this is a good zoning for this area. We have the Hartford across to the east as indicated. That's at 9 units per acre. We're master planned for 6 units per acre. Now you may get probably less than that after you're done with engineering and detention and all the other requirements that are necessary to develop the property. There is somewhat of a negative here because of the landfill to the west of us. So this is a marketable, we feel a very marketable and economically feasible type product to develop and bring to the market. So with that being said, we would kindly request for a recommendation for approval of the rezoning.
Okay. Then let's go to commissioners. Anyone have any comments?
Yeah, I got one question.
Mr. Oliver?
I notice, Mr. Callis, this is only rezoning, but your intention would be for single-level units, no double?
Single level?
Double.
It does permit 2 stories under the zoning district, so
Okay.
depending on, again, it's market and consumer driven.
So you could go to,
We could,
Yeah.
potentially, 2-story townhouses, stuff like that, that type of product, so.
you're saying that hasn't been decided yet?
It has not been decided yet. We've looked at, I should say, I say we, it's our client. They've looked at different options for that area, different type uses. The landowners are extremely experienced and reputable builders and developers. They've been doing it for decades, both in Macomb County, Oakland County, the southeast Michigan area. So they know what the market is focused on. They know what the market demands, what consumers want. And so, it's going to be a very nice product, a very nice project when all is said and done. But again, it'll be driven by the market. We don't know exactly how we're going to fill all the different areas of the property, but under the R2L, it gives us that flexibility for different type of housing product that we can build and absorb.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Mr. Tuckfield? Nothing?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Anyone? All right. Then I will, at 7:12, ask for a motion to
So
open
moved.
this. Pardon me?
So moved.
Oh, okay, we're opening it to the public. Mr. Oliver's making the motion.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Spatafora. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. If anyone would like to come up and speak on the rezoning for the residential one-family urban R1, please come to the podium. You'll have 4 minutes to speak. State your name and address. And again, like I said before, we collect everything and we use it and give it to Mr. Box, and at the end, he addresses it all. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tammy Lowe. I am at 21751 24 Mile, and my house is right up there in the corner, top right corner. We're right at the corner there, and currently the development east of us has a driveway entrance that's quite a ways down 24 Mile. So we're concerned about accessing to 24 Mile, how that's going to impact traffic and safety, and along with accessing into Card Road, how it's going to interfere with the other driveways that are there on the east side as far as traffic goes. And then a couple other things is that Schramm's Farm is right across the street from that area, north on 24 Mile. They get quite a bit of traffic there. I would say our property at the corner there at the northwest corner. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. The northwest corner, we get at least 2 vehicles a year that actually like turn off Card and into our property. Because at the end there, it's a dirt road. People can't go straight forward. They have to turn left or right. People are staying at the intersection there for about 15, 20 minutes sometimes before they can actually turn, especially going left. So it's really a high traffic area. They just installed a light a couple years ago. We've been there 5 years. And the other issue that we have with that area as far as traffic goes is there's a hill that comes up from if you're coming west down 24 Mile, you come up and you can't see the top of the hill where we are. You cannot see anything going on with the traffic there. So we're really concerned about safety. May Schramm had some other commitments that she had to attend to, so she couldn't be there or here tonight. The other concern that I always have with our city, I love our city, is the water capacity. I don't feel like we have the infrastructure currently to support more residential homes in our city. And I really feel like we should be considering either less density, if we're going to grant the transfer over from agriculture to residential, less density, or that we kind of postpone until we can get the water infrastructure under control, so that we're not going to have water limits and water restrictions and water prices raised. I also am concerned that since it is agriculture, it's been farmed for so many years and rented out, and it has been actively farmed by the Schramms, that the creeping zoning is going to end up impacting us north of 24 Mile. It may impact the sod farm down 24 Mile. I'm concerned about zoning creep as far as that goes. And then like right to farm, are we going to end up with issues that come before the city where people moving in are not used to sights and sounds of agriculture?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, and apparently Eagle Water Supply is having issues, remember? So you might not be able to get that water going.
Okay. All right, next.
My name's Amelia. Sorry, my name's Amelia Zielsdorf. My address is 22254 Reese Drive. First, I want to call attention to the zoning ordinance for R2L 0801. It says the intent for R2Ls to be among major paved roads. While the roads in the immediate area are paved, I would not consider them major. Card, as mentioned, is the dead end, only allowing left and right turns. Foss is a short access road, just to the west of that. Yes, sorry. That's also a dead end, which reaches 25 Mile, which is also a dead end. 24 Mile heading in the direction of I-94 is not completely paved, which would then send more traffic to 23 Mile, which we all know is a problem right now. The intersections in the immediate area do not have any traffic lights or traffic circles. They are very hard to make turns on now and already become very congested as is, especially during rush hour traffic. 24 Mile and Card are also one-lane roads. Another point in this zoning ordinance I want to call attention to is that it says it is intended to be in centers of intense urban activity. Currently in the area, there's no commercial or urban activity. In fact, the area is fairly far removed from urbanization. The land is surrounded primarily by agriculture with the exception of a few neighborhoods. It also doesn't align with the current zoning maps, which don't account for R2L in that area. As mentioned, it is planned in the future, but I hope the township would consider whether we can support that right now at this time. It also doesn't really support a good mixture, as mentioned, because the Hartford is right across the street already providing a multifamily option. So we're going to create a very large district of multifamily instead of having a good mixture, in my opinion. That's all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Sosen, 21890 Kensett Drive. I live in the area of Hartford at 24 and Card. My concern, and has been for quite a while for all of us that live there, is there's been quite a few fatalities. And opening this up to more homes, I mean, we need a light there. There's no way that we can have it because traffic backs up on Card Road and 24. I've seen people just pull out in front of people that are coming down 24. It's not safe. So we need a guarantee that if something like this was to be developed, we'll have safety there. Because again, you know, we've seen accidents after accident and fatalities. So that is a red flag that we need a light there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Thomas Hazenleader. I live at 55089 Huckleberry Drive in Macomb. My concern is what I've heard some of these other people, I'll start out with, is the traffic concern. 24 and Card, for anyone that drives that area, is very, very congested. And it's a very, very dangerous intersection. Just west of that is the Foss. And 24, where I understand there's been a few fatal accidents there. Maybe I think one was this year. And I'm concerned with the traffic. I'm concerned with that large parcel of land putting up multifamily dwellings. We can't stop our farmers from selling the land. We can't stop the developers from purchasing the land. And we can't stop the developers from putting in residential areas where they put in a residential area. But however, we can stop the rezoning. And I know that this board has tried to stop other rezoning areas. The one most recently was Luckman and 25 Mile Road, where the board did refuse that developer. And of course, he went to court, and what always happens is the judge overturns, and then the township has to pay the fees and everything for that court case. However, I think this is the time to stop the rezoning at this point. It's my understanding that if this board stops the rezoning, we don't have to worry about a judge overturning that rezoning area to be rezoned. It's my understanding a judge cannot do that, that it's up to you to rezone that area. So if we stop the rezoning of that area, we don't have to put up with the problems that are going to be forthcoming, which in fact, this individual here sitting here, this developer who represents the developer, is not telling us. He's giving vague answers of what he's going to put up. Well, maybe we'll be putting up this, whatever the market says, whatever the market does. Well, I just don't think that's a good idea for this township. We're developing so fast everywhere you look, and it's because of our farmers selling their property. I understand that they're getting old and their children don't want to farm. I understand that part. And we can't stop, as I say, the developers. But we sure the heck can stop the rezoning from them putting in multifamily dwellings in an area that's heavily heavy traffic in that area. If anybody's familiar with that area, they know you can't turn from Card onto 24 Mile Road very easily at all because of the traffic that's coming down 24 Mile Road. And again, you got to take Foss into consideration because that also causes problems on 24 Mile Road. So basically my objection to that is, as I've stated, that I don't think it's good for the township here. I don't think that type of area for multifamily dwellings, maybe two-story dwellings, it doesn't fit the township in that area, and that's my concern. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Diana Hart, and I live at 53100 Gregory in Macomb Township. I drove down 24 Mile Road today, and I took a picture of all of the developers that I could see. I'm going to mispronounce it, and I don't intentionally mean to do this, but is it Jawad, the Jawad Group? Lombardo Everly, Michelangelo Homes coming soon, Leone or Leone Realty, Crestline Homes, Harmony Acres, the Wellington Estates, which I don't know if it's the same Wellington Estates that you had been mentioned at 23. I'm assuming it's the same. So what everyone has been talking about with regards to the concerns with the traffic, I have those as well. But I know that your hands are tied when it comes to the traffic lights and stop signs. So I've been in contact with Mr. Box, and I've been in contact with Macomb County, both the engineering and the traffic department, seeing if there was something that could be done for that area, both on Foss and both on Card Road. And I was told that until that bridge gets done on 25 Mile Road, they're just going to keep an eye on 24 and Card and 24 and Foss. But they're not going to make any decisions until the bridge is completed. And I asked, well, when is the bridge going to be completed? And it's not slated to be completed until 26, 27. And that they won't make any decision until that's done. So I'm standing here before you because I'm looking at what's called the current query crashes for that area. And on both 24 and Foss and 24 and Card, there have been 14 to 35 crashes since 2020. Both on Card and on Foss, separate data. So I have the data here. I've spoken to them about it. I've asked what can be done. I was told, and I'm going to get this wrong, I was told there's a white line that you're supposed to stop at prior to a stop sign. And on Foss Road, if you're going south, trying to turn left on, right, it's so far back that, I drive a Fiat. So if there is an SUV to my left, we're doing this inching thing back and forth so I can see around that individual to be able to just turn right. So I don't know what the solution is here. I understand this gentleman's, what he was saying, that we have to have diversity in the different type of housing that we have, and I agree with that. I'm just concerned that with all of those developers that I just told you, and at the rate at which this is growing, what I would like to ask is, could we at least postpone the rezoning until we find out what's happening with that bridge and what the county is going to do with these two streets? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name's Joe Anton. I live at 52800 Card Road. I live in the house right across the street from where this zoning is going. My biggest concern is what everyone else is saying is traffic. My driveway comes right out to where they plan on rezoning. And I mean, there's times where like I can't get out of my driveway between certain hours of the day because traffic is so far backed up on Card Road. So my biggest concern is if you put multifamily homes there, you're gonna have so much more traffic, I'm not even gonna be able to get into my driveway. And there's no other way in or out, so I don't know where they plan on putting the exits and entrances for this property, and I know obviously they don't know what they're doing with it just yet, but there is 2 houses right there, mine and another. So that's why it is zoned residential 1, because there is 2 single-family homes right across the street. And I know I bought property on a main road. I understand things come with that. But, you know, I have to be able to still get in and out of my house. You know, and there's times at 6 o'clock when I get off work, I sit at work because I can't get into my driveway. You know, especially if there's construction on 23 or if there's construction on 25, because everyone takes 24. And the zoning commission or the planning was just talking about major construction going on at 23 and North Avenue. So there is going to be major traffic coming down 24 Mile from that. My only other concern is, and I don't know, maybe I misunderstand what R2 is it only going to be planned for low-density multifamily homes? Because the way I read it, it can be for other purposes like religious centers or churches or other facilities, and maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but I would like to know that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Rhonda Weist, 52810 Card Road. I apologize for my disruption a moment ago, but as my neighbor has shared, getting in and out of the driveway of our homes, we have to time it, and it's very challenging. I understand about zoning. Everything my neighbor said is true. Developers have a right to develop. Farmers have a right to sell their land for development. But let's not rezone and get a horse before the cart. Let's actually have something a little more thought out, planned out, neighborhood issues resolved before getting ahead of ourselves. Give us a chance to sit down and talk about this one-on-one and be able to have peace of mind so that we can all live as neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Marina Russo, 53950 Foss Road. I'm one of those that live on Foss. First of all, I agree with what everyone is saying. I moved out here 27 years ago with my husband, and we have 18 and a half acres plus my house on Foss Road. What I see is when I moved out here, I moved away from Sterling Heights to an environment I thought was going to be more country. What I see is that is disappearing, and it's disappearing fast. We're going to be another Sterling Heights, Warren, East Point, those kind of things. What I'd like to see this planning commission do is think about when you work with the developers, how can we save certain areas where we're not cutting down our trees? How can we develop areas where we're connecting with the streets? I mean, with the sidewalks, that we can go from one place to another, that we can keep the greenery. What I get a kick out of this development when I see it is they put one row of pine trees, And that's supposed to be to keep you like a forest kind of thing, to make you feel like you're in the country. One line of trees, one line of pine trees. We should have more. We're just destroying everything. I see these beautiful trees. When I used to go to, I still go to where I live, they're being torn down. I understand they have the right, and everyone has the right to develop and sell their property, but we need to work with them in order to save as much of nature as we can in this area, because it's just going to be another cement city. Thank you.
Sean Zilsdorf, 22254 Riss Drive. So I have two main points with this. The first one being, it seems like power goes out quite a bit. So everyone has like generators for their home, especially in that area. Like I live right around the corner. So I think adding a lot of multifamily homes probably isn't good for that issue. The second point is, with there already being so much multifamily with the Hartford, and then next to it, I believe there's more duplexes. Adding more multifamily would likely decrease the property value for the single family homes. So probably don't want to add more multifamilies. So that's my two main points.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Emily Fox, 52156 Naugatuck Drive, and I'd like to kind of piggyback off of what our second to last speaker had mentioned. Just some general concerns moving into some more specific concerns. One thing that I've noticed is, again, it seems like we are very excited or overeager, in my opinion, to kind of rezone and move away from the agricultural land on the north side of the township. And at the end of the day, for me, it comes down to the question of quality of life. And again, I think our second to last speaker really touched on that. When we have housing development on top of housing development on top of housing development, you lose the beauty of the area. I personally feel in the 7 or 8 years that I've lived in Macomb Township that I see every single corner is getting more and more developed over time. We have areas off of Hall Road, specifically between Heidenreich and Card, where we just cut down a slew of trees. So again, we're not necessarily doing what's best as far as preserving nature. And we're starting to see blight in the community as well. So again, speaking specifically to the area of Hall Road between Card and Heidenreich, we've got what I believe was a former Chase Bank that's just been sitting there for years in front of the Target, Home Depot, Starbucks region. And again, I feel like we have been very eager to build and build and build and build without looking at the long-term game plan per se. And so, like our previous speaker said, I too am very worried that this is going to become another Warren, another, Mount Clemens, like she used the phrase, a concrete city, for lack of a better term. And again, for me, that comes down to quality of life. It seems like every, 20 years or so, people move further and further north, 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles. But we're getting further and further from where jobs are centrally located. And so now if you want to have what I consider to be a semi-decent quality of life, you've got a 45, 50-minute commute into your job place or the area that you work. I think as, a concerned community member in front of the planning commissioner or the planning board, we need to think long-term about what our goals are and how we can maintain the agricultural area and keep it rezoned or keep it zoned for agriculture. Again, simply as a quality of life concern. Then, obviously, we've heard a lot of people tonight talk about specifics as far as infrastructure concerns and public safety concerns, and I cannot second that enough. As a resident in the area, I routinely see the traffic going northbound on Card, where it stops at 24 Mile, surpass the first entranceway into the Hartford condos. If we look at the bottom right-hand corner there, that is a good quarter mile, if not more, of just cars backed up. And it can easily take 40 minutes to get through that intersection. That intersection is a major concern of mine. Again, I don't know why we haven't had a light put in there already, but to potentially add more units or more housing structures on top of an already very congested area is, again, just an accident waiting to happen. It's a very dangerous stretch of road. As a previous speaker said, when you're going westbound on 24, there is that slight hill in front of Elon Estates. You can't see over it. That's problematic, especially with the increased traffic in the area. And again, just kind of seconding what people have said before, infrastructure concerns with the electrical grid, with the water supply. Might I have 2 more minutes, or am I done?
You have about 30 more seconds. So
Okay,
go ahead.
beautiful, thank you. So then, again, this leads me to a larger issue about like foresight and planning. I am very concerned as a resident seeing so much of Macomb Township built up, and yet we do not have our own police force. Clinton Township has the Clinton Township Police. Shelby Township has the Shelby Township Police. Chesterfield has the Chesterfield Township Police. And although I wholeheartedly support the Macomb County Sheriff's Department, I don't necessarily think that's enough manpower on the road to support the additional developments that we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years. If I'm not mistaken, we are one of the fastest growing area codes, that being 48044 and 48042 in the county as a whole. And if we are one of the fastest growing zip codes, or the 2 fastest growing zip codes in the county, I want to ask, why is there not talk of our own police force? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Chris Morrow. I live at 51840 Duval Lane, which is just south of that corner blue. My concern is, if we do develop here, will we connect that subdivision into our cul-de-sac, which is just south of there? That's always been a concern of ours. We like it the way it is. It's quiet, it's peaceful. We moved to the northeast corner of Macomb for that reason, and we'd like to keep it that way. And as far as infrastructure goes, as far as the roadways, 23 Mile is basically the new M59 nowadays. If we put all that new housing in there, that's a big, huge parcel, it's almost like the electric vehicle. We don't have the infrastructure to charge vehicles, but we built the electric car. I think we should get the roads fixed first if this ever continues to move forward. But as of right now, we like it the way it is. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Richard Perry, 21688 Pinecone. My only concern is there's advertisement out there telling people that they can come and build houses on that property already. In other words, they've gone around you, and that bothers me. There's people out there selling the property, and they haven't even got the approval on it yet. I would ask this board, put the clamps down on this thing until they get control of it.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
Narina Watkins, 55767 Broughton Road. I did not expect to talk tonight on this, but I'm very impressed with everyone here. I would imagine our area is exhausted from the development you all happen to live in, because it's true, change is hard. As far as the tree in nature, the ripping up of everything, on Broughton Road, there's the houses with a lot of woods left. I have Swiss cheese for long because there's so many critters. I have to take extra precaution when I take my dog out, who's a large German Shepherd, just because the animals are all clustered. But that was another point. We do need to preserve some of the beautiful nature, what appeals to people here. As far as the hype and the developer, they don't live here in our communities. Yes, they have a right, but so do we. We pay the taxes. I wanted to know if the developers are still being held responsible for the improvement of the immediate roads when they develop, as far as turning lanes. And even if they were at the state things are in, it's true, the roads, it's just not enough. There needs to be a lot more done with that, as well as sewers. And this gentleman kept talking about the market, what it looks like. Agriculture is something people are looking for. It is very expensive, but we all see the farmer markets exploding. So maybe they won't develop it. A good reason to hold off on changing the zoning. Somebody else mentioned several different developments underway already, and I know there was a master plan when they built this township hall for all this is diverse housing. The last I looked, I don't get around too much due to construction and being rerouted and detoured. I don't know what's what anymore, but I know there's diverse housing. There's apartments, condos, townhouses, large estate homes. It was already. I don't know that that ever finished. They're still picking up where they dropped everything in 2008. You know, that's it. And just holding off at the very least as far as rezoning it. But all the points been made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Hi, Kathy Piepenbrock, 54222 Foss Road. I came out here 20-plus years ago, and there was expectation shortly thereafter that Broughton Road would be put through, that Card Road would be put through, and they were both put on hold, and they're still on hold. And I live in an area that has gotten progressively busier, a lot more housing put in, which is expected over time because we're the forgotten area of the township. But this was an area that was agricultural, was along the river. We were hoping that we would maintain some type of neighborhood feel, some type of nature feel to this township, and we're beginning to lose that. And the master plan was changed, updated a year or two ago, and some of the areas were actually rezoned to allow more housing in that Foss Road area and around the areas that are currently being constructed on. So that's my concern, that we're losing track of the nature of this area. And we also ended up with one of the big parcels of land that was supposed to be a park at 24 and Foss was sold. So there's the loss of another piece of neighborhood park. So please consider not only the nature that we're losing by rezoning, but also the tremendous traffic problems that are at these areas where the roads aren't yet put through, aren't expanded, are being ignored, as far as the 25-mile road bridge has been ignored since 2024 at least, when it was originally promised to be put in. There are some areas out here that just aren't developed yet. So I think it would be best if this was put on hold. I would be happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, at this time, I'd like a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Spataforos, supported by Mr. Meyerly. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, public portion is now closed. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. I have a list here. I'll try to answer all these questions. I think a lot of them dealt with traffic. The township is aware of the traffic issues there. I drive through this intersection at least twice a day on my way to and from work, oftentimes more than that. So I'm very familiar, and I certainly have witnessed Card Road stacking up south of 24 Mile a number of times myself. That being said, we have been in a number of meetings with the county requesting some form of traffic control at this intersection as well as at Foss. There is a study that is being done right now as part of Broughton Road extension. So for those of you that aren't aware, the township did receive some grant funding to extend Broughton Road down to 24 Mile. As part of that study, we're looking at how that would impact 24 Mile, and we will be doing our best to push the county to say that there needs to be a traffic light at 24 and Card. I think we're all in agreement of that, and there would be something similar, whether it's a roundabout or a traffic light at Broughton and 24 Mile when it gets extended as well. But at the end of the day, we don't control the roads. The county road department does. They make those decisions. Same goes for the access. There was questions about access. Where would this development potentially access 24 and Card Road? There's no plans in front of us, so we don't know that answer yet. But the county road department will weigh in on that, and they will have the ability to, as some of you have pointed out, request, extending a turn lane, maybe even adding a turn lane at the intersection, adding pass-by lanes, up to and possibly even including a traffic light at this intersection. So those are all items that will be ironed out as they go through the site plan phase. That's not why we're here this evening. We're here strictly for the rezoning. With regards to utilities, so it was brought up that we updated the master plan that was adopted by the board in the spring of 2022. So it was a couple years ago at this point. That master plan highlights the intent or the future use of these parcels. This one, R2L, or 6 units per acre, is what was intended there. We didn't just put colors on the map and say this is what should go there. Studies were done to make sure that our underground utilities could handle that, water and sewer included. And as Mr. Callis knows from discussions recently, we went back and reconfirmed that there is, in fact, capacity for a development of this size at 6 units per acre. With regards to the electric grid, we have virtually no control over that. That's a third party that the township can't control. There was a point about major roads, about R2L being on major roads. So the ultimate right-of-way for Card Road and 24 Mile Road are both 120 feet wide. Most of that, in a lot of areas, most of that right-of-way has already been dedicated, but by county road standards, those qualify as major roads, so it would meet that requirement. The master plan, again, was adopted a couple years ago. We had a number of public hearings, public open houses. I think most of you were on the planning commission at that time, if not all of you. We got lots of input, lots of comments. Largely what the planning commission is tasked with is upholding the master plan that was adopted by the Township Board of Trustees. And this request would align with that master plan. A couple last items to try to address. The connections to the cul-de-sac to the south. So if they're the area that I'm thinking of, I think there's 2 or 3 cul-de-sacs there. I believe those were all originally built as temporary cul-de-sacs. They actually stubbed the street further out to the property line with the intent that they would one day move further north. Those are single-family homes, so whether the township would require them to connect to a multifamily development it's unlikely. But as I mentioned, the area in the bottom of that image that's heavily treed is in between that property and this property anyways, and I believe there's some wetlands there, so it's very possible that those streets couldn't be connected anyways. But again, that would be determined in the future. And then lastly, with regards to a police force, I guess I can defer a little bit to Mr. Aloya, but we are a general law township, which I believe the state would not allow us to have our own police force. That would be a charter township, completely different form of government.
Okay. Commissioners, any comments?
I just want to ask Mr. Box, or maybe through the developer. A gentleman up here talked about him advertising lots for sale before anything was even approved. I believe that might be another developer doing that?
Yeah,
Potential developer?
I drove past this twice already today. I did not see any signs on this property advertising anything for sale.
Would that be correct? We might be talking about somebody else
Yes,
advertising?
I am not aware of any signs advertising anything for sale on the property.
On your property?
On our property, correct.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I would.
Go ahead, Mr. Tucker.
Few comments. One, I do believe there is a sign that does refer to residential housing. I believe it is the property to the east, or pardon me, to the west, along 24 Mile Road. At least when the gentleman mentioned it, that's what I was assuming that he was referring to. And what I would just comment with that is that the underlying land, I believe, is zoned for that. So it's typical for us to see signs on property when the property is zoned for use, for people to advertise for that, even if there's no site plan or subdivision approved. So I certainly share his concerns. I've had that with other properties where I've seen advertising that might be in anticipation of a decision, and I think I've commented on it before. It's certainly not something that we like to see, so I appreciate that. A general comment, I guess, just for myself. Obviously, we have a lot of people here tonight. I'm happy to see a lot of people. We don't always see a lot of people. Mr. Box mentioned that we did our master plan process a few years ago, and we always want to see more people. Why? Because it gets more comments. It helps us understand better what people are looking at, where there's concerns. We're residents of the township as well. Similar to Mr. Box, I also make that drive up through 24 and Card there quite frequently. I'm very familiar with the backups of it. But it's good having more context, and I think we had a lot of that this evening. What's difficult is that this board will sit and do this task time after time over the years, and you guys don't always have the benefit of having all of that context. So we arrive at this point where there's emotion and there's effect, and we have context and you have context, and melding that together in one meeting and making sure everybody understands is difficult. And in my experience, it's very rare to be able to give that context. And typically, the most common things is we don't give context outside of what we need to, because it's very hard to convey all of the things that we can convey. That said, there is one element that I did want to speak to, and it is complex, but I think that it's worthwhile mentioning, not to make people feel better, but to give some context as to what we're thinking. So this is the Planning Commission. We deal with things that are happening right now, but we also deal with the master plan. The master plan is typically a 10-year distance. And on the time that I've been on the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, we're looking out 10, 20, and sometimes further years. And one thing that I've personally seen is that government entities always have a tight budget. They never want to put money elsewhere. And so when an area does not absolutely need something, it doesn't get spent there. Our road commission for the county almost never has enough money. That is a pretty well documented fact. And so in my time with the township, I've never seen pre-building of roads to the capacity that they should. So how do we get around this? How do we handle this? Well, a major part of that is the master plan. So during the master plan process, we come up with a draft. We share it with all of our neighboring communities. We share it with the road commission. We share it with all the utilities. You know, the electrical connections were mentioned tonight. DTE gets a copy of that master plan, and they're shown this is what we are anticipating changing these parcels to. This is what we want to change them to over the next year. So they're not zoned that way now, but we are anticipating that people will request this. We are already saying we think this is a good use, and so we want to give you the ability to pre-plan for that. Now, is this process perfect? No. I think someone mentioned earlier that Card and Broughton have been planned on being extended for years. That is true. But the difficulty comes that they don't build roads without houses, and you can't build houses without roads. And so it is a dilemma, and it's not a pretty dilemma. And we all live in this township. I've lived here pretty much my entire life. I've seen all the same traffic that all the rest of you have. I've seen 21 grow over the years. And it's a difficult dilemma, and I'm not saying there's an easy answer to it, except that part of our method is to plan, to show everybody what our plans are, to give them the ability to plan for them, and to have advocates who can make sure that that change happens in a predictable fashion. And one thing, Mr. Box here is our planner. One one of the things that he's very skilled at, that he will not necessarily give himself credit for, but I will, is that he's very good at working with the Department of Roads and other areas to make sure our roads are expanded. And it's a place that the township has long had a deficit in, being able to grow our roads. And you'll notice this year we have Romeo Plank is about to be widened. 23 Mile Road is 5 lanes from end to end in the township. We've got Garfield Road going through. There's a number of major projects. The bridge someone mentioned earlier, which is still several years out. That infrastructure is being put into place. There is certainly traffic issues, but keep in mind that with all of these things, they don't build the roads until we need them. And so what do? Everybody will want to postpone because they don't want extra traffic, but it's not the way the process works. And in municipality after municipality, this is how that it's been affected. So again, it's complex. It's not always the answer that everybody wants to hear. But I want to give the context of what we're looking at and what we've recognized and the steps that we go through to structurally help this from the township level. So that's a general thing. I did want to address the specific issue. Mr. Callis has been sitting here for a while. And remind everyone that this is a rezoning, so we're looking at anything that could be developed on the R2L. We're not looking at a site plan, we're looking at a rezoning. So anything within the rezoning district, that is what we're considering tonight. We're not considering a specific plan. To Mr. Callis's point, he could build 1 story, he could build 2 story. Why? Because they are both allowed in R2L. And for me, as I look at this evening, the low density multifamily is supposed to be a buffer between higher density and residential. Typically, we don't like putting 9 units per acre right up against R1 single family homes because they don't buffer well, traffic, all sorts of things. So as I look at this, it meets the master plan. It's been in the master plan for some significant period of time. And it is a proper buffer between 2 uses as I would see it through the master plan. One thing that I did want to comment on to Mr. Callis is just a general comment. Is that I know from myself personally, I don't like looking at the current economic indicators. As you mentioned, currently, that's probably the most marketable use for the land. But if we were to develop our township based on the current most marketable uses for the land, it could become much more hodgepodge. We do want to take a more long-term approach. And I think in this case, the long-term approach that we have looked at in this case also matches up with what you're looking for. But I wanted to just generally make the point that for me, when people come in and say currently this is the most marketable, well, 3 years the most marketable was completely different uses. So just for a future reference, that's something that I wanted to be careful about considering. Yeah, I'm not sure that there's anything much more specific. This for us is actually a relatively straightforward request. It meets the master plan. But I wanted to thank everybody for coming in. It's not an easy thing to come in, and I wanted to give as much context as I could for the discussion this evening so you can have a little bit of an understanding of how we approach some of these decisions. So that's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckfield. Mr. Bentley?
I did have a question for Mr. Bach, Josh. Could you identify or list the types of occupancies, facilities that could be built on the R2L?
I don't have our ordinance sitting in front of me, but it supports, as he mentioned, multifamily being duplex, maybe a fourplex or townhomes. It would also allow less denser items. It would allow single family homes. Typically, the way zoning works is when something is more dense, it allows certain things, and it allows everything in the categories that are considered less dense than that. So you could default, even though it's zoned R2L, you could default down to R1 and still build single-family homes if you wanted. I think actually one of the folks was questioning something about religious institutions. I think religious institutions are a permitted right in every zoning category, and I think that the state and federal law would concur with that. It does not sound like that's what Mr. Callis is indicating they're intending to build here, but to Mr. Tuckfield's point, that could he? Sure, he could build that right now without rezoning it.
As well, there was senior citizen homes.
That's correct. Senior housing is another one that has some slightly different requirements, but they are allowed in R2L. Yes.
And one speaker had identified that the R2L is, as well, should be buffered or should be a buffer for intense urban activities between less dense areas. We don't have really any intense urban activities in this area, and I don't think there will be for a long time.
So if you look at I would agree, it's maybe not totally an intense urban activity, but if you look at the master plan, the area directly to the north is currently a farm, and that is planned for much lower density moving forward. So that those sections of the township, if assuming the master plan is followed, will remain roughly 2 units per acre, so significantly less. So even a typical subdivision that we see being built, those are typically 3 units per acre, so it would even be less dense than that should they someday be developed. So it would kind of buffer from the busy 23-mile corridor. I know 23 in Card, there's construction going on right now. Buscemi's is expanding. There's a commercial plaza going in with that. Directly across the street from Buscemi's is a large parcel that's zoned commercial. As Deerbrook on 23 miles being built, Remar Farms is now open. I would envision that at some point that parcel will develop as a commercial development. So this would be that buffer between the commercial node at 23 in Card down to the lower density residential further to the north.
Except that it's on the other end of a current subdivision there, and really it's not a buffer between a higher use. So, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner? Mr. Spatafora.
Just to kind of follow up the question that was raised, and along with what follow up what Mr. Tuckfield said, and this is for the benefit of our residents and our friends that are in the audience. I do have the zoning ordinance in front of me. If you just permit me for a moment or two to read and cite what in the zoning ordinance is both permitted by right or by a special land use. Sorry about that. So in the R2L, which is what is requested this evening, a 2-family dwelling would be a permitted use. Buildings with 3 or more dwelling units are permitted. A medium density multiple housing would be permitted. And then housing for older persons, that would be a special land use which has its own criteria that we as a planning commission have to consider as well. Also, a place of assembly or worship is a special land use. Public owned and or recreational buildings and uses is a special land use. Public utility buildings and uses without yards, again, that's also a special land use. Cemeteries, special land use if an applicant comes in with such a request. Golf courses, but not including golf driving ranges, miniature golf courses, or freestanding commercial uses. Again, special land use. Public or private park or recreation areas, a special land use. And then lastly, there's a couple of items too under the miscellaneous chart that we have in our zoning ordinance for the R2L zoning district. And any accessory uses or buildings, a permitted use, and heliports as an accessory use would be a special land use. The zoning ordinance, which would be, I think, available from the planning department to review or to purchase, would have more definitions as defined on that, which you could take a look at. But those are some of the various uses that an R2L zoning district would allow. So I just wanted to make mention of that for the benefit of those that are here.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right. And Mr. Box, tonight we're just looking at the rezoning. We have really no, other than the suggestions by Mr. Spatafora from that, nothing's going in right away.
That's correct. They would,
And the developer
anything that
has a
they
long
develop-
road to go through, and a lot of departments to work his way through before any kind of development will ever be done, correct?
that's correct.
Okay, all right. Yes,
I did
Mr.
have
Bentley.
one more question, and it's bugging me, for the petitioner. Give me a compelling reason for changing this from an R1 to an R2L. You had identified in the packet that we have, it was primarily for financial issues, marketing of what people would pay for. That single-family homes, would not be built there because it's just not feasible. Is that correct, or is there more to that?
Many reasons, as I indicated previously, Mr. Commissioner, and in my submittal, that was part of the rezoning application. First of all, it's a master plan for what we're trying to rezone it to. So we fit the master plan perfectly.
The upper end of that.
Yeah,
master
you have Hartford to the east, which is 9 units per acre. We're master planned for 6 units per acre. So under planning principles, that's considered a transitional zoning. And, it's recognized and used in planning. Sorry, I thought I was in another country there. So the utilities are available, and as the planning commissioner, Mr. Tuckfield, so perfectly articulated, growth drives, or development drives growth. You have, whether it's good or bad, one of, if not the top community in the state of Michigan with respect to residential. It's a very desirable community. People want to live here. Builders want to build here. Developers want to develop land. Year in, year out, as I'm sure you're aware, Macomb Township leads the state of Michigan in issuance of residential permits. So you have a very desirable community. We want to do business here. My clients have done other projects in the community, several other projects. This is an ideal piece of property for the intended use and for what it's master planned for, quite frankly, which I feel the master plan was done very competently, and it delineates uses here that are not only in demand now and in the near and distant future, but also what's right for that area, what's right for the township. So that development, by generating the tax revenue and the money necessary, will lead to improvement of roads. It may lead, as was previously indicated, the roads under the jurisdiction of the Macomb County Road Commission. So when we actually come in and submit a site plan to develop the property, the Macomb County Road will have jurisdiction over it also. And they may look at it and say, okay, you know what? We need you to expand this road. We need you to put a traffic signal at 24 and Card. We need 2 access drives off 24, 3 access drives off Card Road. We need bypass lanes, a left turn lane, acceleration and deceleration lanes. That's all part of the process, and that will be dealt with during the site plan and engineering stage. But that comes much later. Right now, all we're asking is to allow for a zoning as articulated in the master plan, and as we have requested. And so all that other stuff will be done and this will be developed in phases. It'll be developed over years. It's not going to all be done overnight. And so with that, revenue is generated, roads are improved, roads are expanded, utilities are expanded. It allows for more public services, more fire, more police, et cetera, et cetera. So those are all the reasons for the rezoning request. And in addition to, obviously, it meets your master plan and land use, future land use designation.
Thank you.
Okay, no, the public portion is closed, but thank you. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? Go ahead.
Did have one other question for Mr. Woya. I think there was one comment that was brought up that the rezoning at this point would be final and that there would be no way to change it if it was denied. Can you speak to that a little bit, if that is accurate or not?
That is not accurate. So, if the rezoning is denied, the applicant will have an appeal as of right to the Supreme Court, or not the Supreme Court, to the Circuit Court of Macomb, and the court will weigh whether or not that rezoning was appropriate under legal standards. Now, typically you see denials of rezonings when developers come to the township and seek to rezone a piece of property which is inconsistent with the master plan. This zoning request is consistent with the master plan. So I certainly believe that Mr. Callis, if he's denied here, will be arguing that in front of the Macomb County Circuit Court, that we have developed a master plan after extensive studies and that this is consistent with the master plan and that we denied it unjustifiably. I certainly defend all cases for Macomb Township vigorously, so be happy to do that here, but that's what you would be facing as a township.
Okay. All right, we good? Do we have a motion on this item?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no further discussions, I would make a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning for permanent parcels 0815200016, 0815200017, and 0815200009 from R1 and agricultural to R2L. This is based upon the fact that it matches our master plan land use designation, that it matches the narrative description of what our master plan describes for the area, and that the applicant has provided all the proper documentation, and that this is recommended by all the appropriate department heads.
Okay.
I'll
Motion
second that
to
motion.
approve the rezoning, I'm sorry?
I will second that motion.
Okay. Motion to approve the rezoning of the residential R1 to and HE to R2L by Mr. Tuckfield, seconded by Mr. Spatafora. Mr. Bentley, would you please call the roll?
I will. Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes.
Mr. Spatafora.
Yes.
Mr. Oliver.
Yes.
Mr. Hardy.
Yes.
Mr. Bentley. No. Mr. Marley.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, if I
I
could
would like
recommend-
to, at this time, take a little break for about 5 minutes. So if we could do a 5-minute break, that would be great. Thank you. Order, please. Okay.
8:20?
Yeah, 8:20 works. We're waiting for Mr. Meyerly. He'll be out in just a minute.
Okay, everybody else is here.
When, The next item on our list is conditional rezoning from residential one-family urban, R1, to residential multifamily low-density, R2L, North Avenue condominiums, located on the west side of North Avenue, south of 21 Mile Road, Section 35. Gary Schliemann, petitioner, permanent parcel number 0835276-003 and 0835276-004. Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. As you mentioned, and as you see on the screen behind you, this is near the intersection of North Avenue and 21 Mile. I think everybody here is aware of where this is, or they wouldn't have stayed this late. So I just want to step back for a second and explain the difference between a rezoning, which we just went through, and a conditional rezoning. So a straight rezoning, which is what we just went through, is somebody who's asking to rezone something that would typically match the master plan. A conditional rezoning is when somebody would ask to rezone something that doesn't match the master plan, but they can offer some voluntary conditions that might make it a little bit more palatable for the township to accept. So that's what we're here for. The applicant is requesting to conditionally rezone this, knowing that it doesn't match the master plan, and they have offered a list of conditions along with their request. At this time, they're requesting 42 multiple family units, again, on the the west side of North Avenue, on the east side of the property. So the conditions that they're offering is the property shall be developed and used as a 42-unit attached residential condominium as set forth in the concept plan, which I'll go over in a minute. As a voluntary condition offered, the FUFU 21 is the applicant. That's the name of their entity. To the township in connection with its conditional rezoning request, they'll convey the westerly 100 feet of the property to be used by the township for a river walk along the Clinton River. And so, just so everyone is aware, what that's referencing is the township is in fact looking for property along the North Branch. The county has established a greenway vision along the North Branch of the Clinton River. The township has the former Lions Hall that is adjacent to the river. We've secured some grant funding, and we're working on purchasing some other properties. And we're supporting the county in their efforts to one day have a greenway that would parallel the river to preserve some nature for the residents for the years to come. With regards to these, so I'm going to go over these staff comments in red. The 100-foot designation is not shown anywhere on the associated concept plan. Their next condition that they voluntarily offered up is that it will meet all other ordinance standards. The plan is intended to illustrate the general layout and location of the buildings. So essentially what they're saying is outside of the variance requests that you're going to see shortly, they will follow the ordinance otherwise. We did request that the engineering be updated to say engineering plan approval. So the variances that they're requesting as part of their conditions are all of those that you see here, being a parking reduction, setback reductions from all property lines, where 50 foot would be required, all the way down to, I believe, 15 feet 8 inches is the shortest one. 21 foot reduction from the required 50 foot setback on the southern property line. variances, if required, shall be so moving forward, if there are any other variances, they're saying that they would go to the zoning board, which would be typical. We did note that the condition requests a variance of 21 feet, but the concept plans show a 35-foot setback. That information needs to match. And they did make mention that these variances had been approved by the ZBA. They have not yet been approved by the ZBA. So this is the concept plan that they attached to their plan. Additional clarification will be shown in red as I'm going to walk through some of this. So the drawings identify the development as shown, but the agreement identifies it as North Avenue Woods condominiums, so it needs to match. The width of the proposed sidewalk is not shown. The building is not labeled. This building is not labeled or described. That would be the building located out nearest to North Avenue. And the drawings are titled site plan when they should be considered a concept plan. Should this be approved, they would still need to come back with a site plan. This is a concept plan that accompanies a conditional rezoning. Moving forward, the required front yard setback along North Avenue is 105 feet from the center line. Their dimensions are not accurately depicted. 14 parking spaces are shown within the required front yard setback. This is not allowed by the ordinance, nor was it identified as one of the conditions in their statement. Parking spaces that abut front yards are required a 5-foot concrete bumper slab. This is not shown, so if you drive down Hall Road, for example, you'll see a lot of the parking spaces that abut Hall Road have, it almost looks like another sidewalk there. That's a bumper slab, so that vehicles that have overhang, the yard underneath it can still be maintained. A 50-foot rear yard separation distance is required between buildings. They're showing these buildings as being 34 feet roughly apart. 30-foot separation distance between the closest edge of structures to the closest edge of all paved private roads is required. The separation is shown as less throughout the site. The infrastructure in this area of the township was not really designed for this. Again, it's zoned R1. It wasn't really designed for this amount of units and this amount of capacity. So we're not sure that the capacity of the facilities could handle a development like this. There's no offers, conditions being offered that would help mitigate this type of development being constructed near single-family residences either. Typically, when we see stuff like this that comes in to develop something other than what the master plan calls for, they would offer an extra large buffer of landscaping or a masonry wall, something that helps set it away from the existing folks, so they're not impacted by something they weren't expecting to ever be built next to them. They're not offering anything of that sort here. The site is technically required a 35-foot setback. The agreement states that a 21-foot variance is requested from the 35-foot requirement being required. The concept plan appears to request a 9-foot variance. The information needs to be clarified. So essentially it doesn't agree with the statement in their conditions. Does not appear to be any landscape screening buffering along the north and south property lines, again, adjacent to other residents. A paved parking area is shown abutting the south property line. Not something we would typically allow. There are setbacks requirements for that. So at this point, township staff can't support this. There are just too many inconsistencies with the ordinance, that we're not sure that the infrastructure in this area can handle this. There's no conditions offered that would help mitigate that. Overall, there's a significant lack of information and conflicting information between the agreement and the concept plan, and there's a significant number of design deviations from the ordinance that are not specifically called out as part of their conditions. And I did want to point out that, again, this has not been studied, but the map you see there is from the county. It's their best estimate, and they're usually fairly accurate, maybe within a few feet. The bulk of this property is in the floodway, which is extremely difficult to impact in any way, shape, or form. The stuff in the red would be considered a flood zone, which they do allow some cut and fill there, but almost the entire property would be considered in the flood zone, if not the floodway. In addition to that, the Conklin drain cuts across this property. There would be some significant engineering and earthwork that would need to be done to come anywhere close to what they're suggesting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Box. Is the petitioner here?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Gary Slayman, 21505 Garrison, Dearborn, Michigan.
Okay. Do you have anything you'd like to share with the Planning Commission?
Tough to say anything with everything that's been said, but I mean, initially when it was proposed to the township, the gentleman that I had met with liked the idea. Obviously, I apologize for some of the incorrect information. I mean, I think a lot of it could be addressed if overall we could do this. And, you know, the issue with, you know, I know there's a lot of things that would need to be met as far as with the Macomb, and we've talked to Oakland, you know, we've talked to the county, and, you know, everybody has said it could be done, but there's a lot of steps to kind of get there. So, you know, and obviously we're willing to do those steps if it you know, presents itself, you know, to be able to do it. So I guess that's, you know, we'll try to do everything we can to accommodate it.
Okay. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question first for Mr. Box and then the petitioner. Mr. Box, when we calculate land density, do we typically calculate it on the total acreage of the parcel or the estimated or actual buildable area of the parcel?
Are you referring to what, the allowable density?
Yes.
Yes, that would be on the usable area. So, for example, if you had 10 acres and it was zoned something that could handle 3 units per acre, but 5 of those acres were in a floodway or in a wetland area, those would not be counted. So the other 5 acres would be applied at 3 units an acre, so you'd be allowed 15 units.
And in this case, we estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 acres buildable? Is that?
I would guess that there's roughly 3 acres in the floodway, or excuse me, the floodplain, based on this map. Again, this would need to be studied. A survey would need to be done to figure out exactly where the floodway is and exactly where the floodplain is. They're pulling this information from FEMA. The county does. It's relatively accurate, but it's not 100% accurate. So basically, the only potential building area would be the area in red, and even that would be cut and fill, meaning you could dig the western side a little bit deeper to allow, and you would use that dirt you dug on the eastern side to build it up and get it up out of the floodplain. There would be a lot of work here.
And it's currently master planned R1, 3 units
correct.
per acre?
That's correct.
So currently as master planned, it's expecting 9 units?
That's correct.
Roughly, assuming that the size. And then the request would be conditional R2L, which would be 6 units per acre. So 6 times 3 is 18 units, so 9 to 18. And I believe currently it's being requested for 42.
That's correct.
Okay. To the applicant, obviously I talked in the last one about the master plan. We're planning, we're trying to talk to everybody.
Yeah, you did a great job explaining everything.
I appreciate
you know, one comment I just like.
But if I could, I just got done telling people we plan for it. We're planning for 9.
Right.
Even if we change to this zoning, it'd be 18, and you're asking 42. I just got to be frank with you as a commissioner. I'm kind of even surprised to see it up here because this is a long way from what we would normally see. You know, but I'm asking because you did bring it up. Right. What's your thought about this?
When I approached the
distance here?
township, and I had a meeting with David and his staff, and you know, he proposed. He said, "Let me run it by, you know, the people he needs to run it by." And he came back and said, "Okay, this is the maximum we could do." I didn't ask for 40 or 30 or 20. He came up with a number that said this could work. You know, obviously we're giving up some land to the township for that river walk. I believe the property to the south of that is going to be a parking lot, which I was told that the township owns that, and that would be a parking lot for people to come in and walk to the river walk. And and then I know the house that's actually to the north of it, you know, he's looking to sell, and there's been other developers that have bought up homes, and you know, and with the condominiums across the street, it's a 5-lane road. You got a school across the street. It seemed like, you know, that as these houses eventually would be sold, and you can't build on all of the land because of the wetland issue. So, you know, I mean, I only continued to go with it based on my meetings with the township, and feeling that it seems like maybe in the next 5 or 10 years that most of those homes that may end up becoming some type of, you know, residential condos or something of that nature. So, I mean, that was the reason to kind of continue with it, was based on the conversations, and they came up with the number of 42. I didn't come up with that number.
I guess, having worked with the planning department, I find myself skeptical of that number coming from the planning department. If that's the case, however, are you interested in doing this maybe something closer to what we had master planned? Is that something that you would foresee developing?
Well, if the master plan is how many units? I mean, if it's 9 units, I mean, it doesn't really justify, you know, the investment at that point. You know, I mean, obviously I'm willing to work with whatever we could, but it just, I mean, it, you know, but I guess really whatever the number is, it would make sense. You know, again, a large portion of that you can't build on, so it would be the trees would remain, it would be a park. You know, there could be a walkway to the Riverwalk whenever that comes about. I mean, it would actually, and they even mentioned to me that, you know, put the units in a cluster so that you don't use up the space. So I kind of did this, you know, conceptual site plan based on 3 or 4 meetings that I had with the township. And, you know, and so the idea was put the units in a cluster. They would be very nice units. I mean, these are, you know, 2-story units, you know, basically leaving all the other land available for people to be able to walk and enjoy the park and enjoy everything. And obviously the Riverwalk, you'd probably have a lot of traffic with a parking lot next door going to the Riverwalk. So, and there's a buffer, you know, between the unit having a parking lot, and then there's more trees, and obviously there's a significant amount of trees that would stay anyway, so.
Okay, thank you. To Mr. Box, the applicant's mentioning that the township is indicating a number of units. Is this something you're familiar with?
So I am aware that he met with Mr. Skirdo a few times. In conversations with Mr. Skirdo, my understanding was that when he approached the township about multifamily there, and we had indicated it's not zoned for that, Mr. Skirdo did indicate that there might be some willingness from the township to work with him to expand the amount of density because we're looking at this potential greenway. And I think what happened is he looked at the fact that he has 7 acres, not considering the fact that much of that is in the floodway. And what Mr. Skirdo told him was that you would conditionally rezone it because you're planning multifamily. You'd have to conditionally rezone it to R2L, which is something that allows multifamily. So he took the 7 acres and 6 units per acre. If you do the math, that's where the 42 units come from. I don't believe that David Skirdo came up with that number. And he is right about the cluster. That is what we'd want. If there were more units there, we would want them clustered more towards the center so that there could be a larger buffer on the outsides, knowing that next door is a single family home. And I guess he is saying they clustered them all the way from one edge of the property to the other.
Yeah.
I don't see any buffer.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Who else? Anybody else? Question? Mr. Spatafora?
To Mr. Sleeman, you said you met with Mr. Skirdo or other people within representing the planning department 3 or 4 times?
Yes, at least 4 times.
At least 4 times. Well, with the reviews that we've gotten back, there's so many different comments, let alone what we're obligated as commissioners to follow with that after 3 or 4 meetings to come back with this, quite honestly, full of holes like that, you're kind of stretching this a bit where, you know, do you feel maybe you want to go back and maybe even rework it?
Yeah.
You did mention it doesn't justify an investment, but given the land, the topography, the zoning, the floodway, the flood, you know, plain on that, realistically, as you think this is something that can work?
Again, I continued with it based on those conversations. But if we can meet these other requirements, and maybe we have to lose a few units. So if we can meet these other requirements, or eliminate that parking, create those buffer zones, I mean, if those could be met, is it something that would work? I mean, that would.
Well, if it's commensurate with the future land use going from potentially 42 units even down to 32 or 22, I mean, we're looking to go
Right.
giving you the benefit of the doubt, maybe perhaps up to 9, you know, given the other nice
Right, right.
features that you're willing to offer, that is quite a discrepancy, don't you think?
Based on what I'm hearing now, yes, but at the time, that never came up in the conversation.
Okay, at the time, when was the last time that you met with the township, if I may ask?
The last time was probably 3 months ago. And this is the architect.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me, sir, pull up a chair, and then we need your name and address for the record.
I know winter is coming, so why waste your time? Anyway, I met with the.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Farid Majoradi, 1695 Cold Street, Birmingham, Michigan. That's my home address.
Thank you.
Yes, I was present in the last meeting. I met with the.
Speak into the mic.
Can you hear me now? Yes, I was present at the meeting. In fact, because of the lot being so big, I said 42 units even doesn't justify the investment because of the cost. And the gentleman who's a consultant said that's based on so many units per acre, and that's all you're going to get.
And the meeting was about 3 months ago or 2 months
Yes.
ago?
And the setback, we pulled it out of your zoning ordinance. I know you have a master plan, but as of right now, I read it again. In the zoning ordinance, it calls for 90 because it's a variable right of way. Right in front of our property, for some reason, is 60 feet, and that's what our auto survey had indicated as well. So whether it's a master plan in the future going to 105 feet, at the current time is not in your ordinance, so I didn't know that we have to, if it is, it should be put into ordinance as a matter of fact right now, because it's not. I can later on send a copy to and then we did mention that this is more of a PUD, it's a little bit more dense. There were also conflicting comments from the engineering. One point they said the driveways has to be 28 feet. And I made a comment to him in an email that we don't allow any parking in these roads, so 24, and some places is at 24 feet. There is an 8 feet sidewalk that they asked for in that meeting, but I didn't see or don't see any use of putting a concrete in front of the parking if it can be just grass with an overhang. So, and we did ask for variance for extra parking and setbacks on the south side only, and variance on the proximity of the clusters together, which is supposed to be 50, and I believe we are 35. So having said that, that was what the design was based on 3 variances and what I read in the zoning ordinance book. And I'm definitely, I made a point of asking, is 42 all we're going to get? He said, yeah, it's based on the acreage. 6 times, it's almost 8, but because it wasn't completely 8, it became 42.
So
Thank
that'd
you,
be
that's all I
like
have.
14 units per acre.
No, 6.
Equals 42, because there's 3
Right, right.
usable acres.
6 times, yes. And then we did put a hall or a office, which was not in the ordinance, in the front for, gathering of the residences and things like that.
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask a question, there's been something that's come up a couple times with regards to variances. Have you sought variances?
No, I don't know if something was filled up, no.
Okay.
That's why we said in the drawings that variances are required. We have not said, we are right now only for conditional rezoning based on the concept plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Spatafora, did you have something?
No, I'm just going to add, with all due respect, gentlemen, that what has been presented to us in our packets to study and consistent with the zoning ordinance, it does not appear, at least in my mind, that there was a proper meeting of the minds with
Yeah,
what
it's
you're
possible.
representing and then what our planning department, through its personnel, and through our other departments who review this thing, have revealed to us.
Correct.
And
I agree.
I'm sorry, just to add, in fact, I told my client maybe you should approach the township with a planned unit development, which, as my understanding is, it allows you to come up with an idea that the community feels it's a good idea. That might have been a better choice of approach.
Sir, right into the mic, please. You got to talk right into the
Sorry,
mic.
I just even recommended to him to perhaps you should approach this as a planned unit development that your ordinance allows for, regardless of zoning. That's something where you come up with a total idea and the township and the residents decide whether they like it or not, and either passes as a PUD or it doesn't pass. Because, yeah, they're correct. We are asking for more than your current ordinance allows. Just being frank about it.
I'll respond to that through the chair and respectfully suggest, if you wanted to do something like that, in addition maybe to Mr. Skirdo, you may want to go to the planning department and talk to Mr. Box and have maybe a pre-development meeting, not only with Mr. Box, but also input from some of our other departments that show up, mainly with our engineering department, our head of our land development here in the township as well, and they can give you probably right in the meeting some input and guidance and say, yes, this could work, or no, this could not. And what we're seeing here, it's screaming at us as of tonight, no, this isn't going to work.
I assure you, if I was told that, I wouldn't have gone this far, but that's okay. We'll see if we can come back to the table and rectify some of this.
Your choice if you want to come back, if you want to
Well, no, with
table it,
obviously
or,
their-
and decide if you want to come back and do it, or come back with something different, or as you indicated, do what you need to do to justify your investment.
Well, I mean, I think obviously we want to work with the township to see. I mean, they wanted that river walk. They needed the 100 feet of land, which we proposed to give up to was no problem. So I guess, I mean, the only way it works is it works with everybody agreeing, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you, though.
Mr. Box, did you want to comment on some of the questions from the developer?
So if we
I just want to
table
be
it-
clear.
Comments?
Yeah, I just want to be clear that you guys are saying 3 acres. There's 3 acres in the flood zone according to this map. That's not 3 acres of usable land. That some of it could be usable if there's some land balancing taking place. In addition to that, as you see on the map there, the Conklin Drain runs right through the middle of that. If you've ever been down North Avenue after a large rain, much of that area is underwater from the Conklin Drain. Not coming from the river, it's coming from the Conklin Drain. So I would say thinking that there's 3 usable acres is even being extremely generous.
Okay.
I mean, the 2 homes that are on there, I'm sorry, I mean, they've not had any flooding, so obviously everything was going to be built within high ground. But we have to address all the issues, of course. So if it makes sense to table it and redo it, that's fine.
Okay.
Just
Ladies
to
and
follow
gentlemen,
up,
public portion isn't yet. You'll
just
have
to
your time.
follow up on what Mr. Bach said to the petitioners. Have you ever seen that after a heavy rain, that area? Have you owned it long enough to actually see it?
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Do you see where it starts flooding from North Avenue past the
Oh, yeah,
driveway?
it raises
Yeah,
pretty
so-
high.
So,
But we'd have to do
Just
underground
hold on.
retention.
I want to make it clear that what happens is that all the departments, the engineering, the county, everyone comes in and expects you as the developer to, if they're going to allow it, to balance that in a proper way that them homes won't flood, the driveway won't flood. What the people are using now has been there 50 years.
Right.
So the county, the DQ is allowing that, but anything new that comes has got to be totally updated.
Absolutely.
So following up to what Mr. Bach said, you might have 2 acres when this is all done.
Right.
So just if we were talking, I would say find out how much land you actually got to build. Come in and talk to these guys, see what you could do. But
I mean, I had it
right
surveyed.
now, again, as I think the board is clear, I just don't know if this could ever go. Because I think there's going to be a lot of flooded people here.
Right.
So if we allow something like this, then we're allowing people to be flooded out clearly.
I mean, definitely we thought of that, and I mean, I had it surveyed, and based on the survey and the professional survey that went out there, you know, what we would use would be proposed. No house would be lower, or no unit would be lower than what's already there. And those units have basements, they've never flooded, but we're not even proposing basements. So it would be on a crawl space, so it would even be a couple of feet higher than what's already there. So definitely we took that into consideration.
Well, that water's not a couple feet deep.
No,
when
no,
it
I meant
floods. It
a
floods.
couple of feet higher than what's
Like-
existing homes now.
It boat floods. Like where I've seen them residents actually use a boat, a jet ski, or something just to get back and forth. And it's, I mean, you know,
It seems like fun, I guess, but we would definitely develop it with engineering standards. Right now it floods because
Right.
it's
So,
nature's way.
that's-
We are proposing a pond, catch basins, and think, of course, he's not gonna design a condo after years of experience that people are not gonna buy. Those are after issues. I think it's dead stop because at this point, I mean, if he builds 3 condos, it'd be one for him, one for me, one for his son. So might as well end the conversation at this point. I just
and I appreciate that. But going back to what I originally said, find out how much area you could build on.
Well,
before you invest a lot more than you're investing.
No, definitely, I agree. Well, based on the survey and based on the land that's there now, the existing homes, these condos fit within where those existing homes are. There's no, it's not going, you know, we're not going any lower. We're building on high ground, not low ground. So definitely, I took that into consideration, but obviously, we got a lot more things to do.
I think you got a lot more things to do, sir.
Yeah.
So that's all I had
Also
to say.
getting some variances approved as well.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone? All right, at this time, I need a motion to open this item to the public by Mr. Bentley. Motion by Mr. Bentley, supported by Mr. Spatafora. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, public. Now is your time to come up to the podium. Hold on. Come up to the podium. You have 4 minutes. And we take all the comments at the end and we give them to Mr. Box and the commission and we address them at the end. So please name and address, please.
Michael Bischoff. I live at 46575 North Avenue. I own the house north of their property here. You want to look at where the 100-year floodplain is. Look at my house. Look at what I had to do to stay above the floodplain. Look at the steps going up to my house. You know, that's, and I've never, my driveway's been flooded, that whole area. I have concern about when he builds, water seeks its own level. You know, when he builds there, what's it going to do to my front yard? It's already, you know, sometimes, at least twice a year, I got 18 inches of water to get out. You know, barely have a pickup, 4-wheel drive pickup truck, and I'm able to pick it up, but anything smaller, you know, forget getting out of there. The Conklin drain, yeah, you're right. It comes back from the river. When the river fills up, the drain comes backwards. They redid the Conklin drain on the other side of North Avenue to over 21 Mile, but they never did our side. It's the county. I mean, the county never did our side. You know, it's a problem out there. And the fill, you know, the amount of fill it would take, or you know, the land balancing to raise it up to where my property is, I can't even imagine. You know, without having stuff trucked in, I can't even imagine balancing that kind of dirt on that property. You know, just from, you know, I've lived out there since '99. I went through the big floods of, he talked about the boats coming out. Yeah, that was my son's going from the road, you know, we had a rope, you know, from the house, and they were taking a rowboat across all the way. And it was probably for 2 days it was like that. Daryl, one of my neighbors, you know, he lived out there, you know, he was there at the same time we went through it. Even though just about the level even out to the street, you know, it gets probably on a bad day, it'll get within 20 or 30 feet from North Avenue, even after it's been redone, you know, so it's going to be a feat. My family used to own the properties that this gentleman bought. I looked into developing that thing years ago with Fossil Khan. You know, he said, forget it. It was just too much. The only buildable part was where the houses are now. You know, I was sort of hoping when the gentleman bought it, he would just tear down the houses and build 3 or 4 houses, divide up the property. You know, he's got quite a bit of property. I had a sale on my house. I am a single guy. I got a 3,000 square foot home, and it's pending to see what happens with this thing. So, you know, and I want to move somewhere else in the township. I wish him luck, you know, but I don't think he's ever going to be able to put condos there.
Thank you, sir. Next.
My name's Rick Olmsted. I live at 46478 Serenity, and I back up to the west side of these properties. And so I don't ramble too much, I'm just going to read a statement. Considering the proposal to build the 42-unit condo complex on North Avenue, I have objections to the change in zoning. I've lived and worked in this area for 40 years, and I'm familiar with the topographic aspects of the community. The proposed zoning concerns me for the following reasons. There have been years that in the spring, due to heavy snow melt and frequent heavy rains, the north branch of the Clinton River and the Cockland Drain has flooded up to and even over to the east side of North Avenue. I currently live on Serenity and back up to the west side of the river, and even in a normal year, the river will come to within 2 to 3 feet of the top of the bank on my side of the river, and on the other side is water for as far as you can see. And that's in the spring when there's no leaves to block your view. From the standpoint of any condo owners, I'd be concerned that these units will be subject to flooding or sewer backup issues. Keeping in mind, several years ago on Patnick Drive, several homes were condemned that were on the west side of Patnick Drive because of flooding issues. At times, some homes north or south of this property in question are almost islands due to high waters, as the other gentleman just mentioned. I think building homes or condos in this area is a huge mistake. Another concern is a 42-unit condo complex is going to encourage future development on North Avenue, both north and south of this parcel. I don't know if there's been any additional parcels that have been rezoned or considered for rezoning. Hopefully not. The string of condos or apartments along North Avenue will create additional issues with water runoff and heavier traffic. The intersection of 21 and North Avenue is already plagued with frequent accidents. Plus, you got an elementary school a quarter of a mile south of these parcels. Adding potentially hundreds of additional vehicles will create higher traffic hazards, and further development, in addition to this proposed parcel, will increase traffic and potential flooding, as I just mentioned. In addition, if there's further development it creates on the impact, I'm concerned on the impact it will have on property values. Multifamily developments, most significantly apartments, but even condos, deteriorate the value of single-family homes that are adjacent to it. In addition, this area holds a lot of wildlife. We've seen deer, we've seen fox, we've seen coyote, we've seen, of course, rabbits, squirrels, and skunks.
Sir, you got about 1 more minute.
Okay, I'm almost done.
Okay.
You know, if they develop this, you develop all this property, that wildlife is going to go somewhere, and I don't want to see it being forced into our neighborhood on the west side of the river. Master plan doesn't account for this. I think that's a good reason right there to table this and reject it. You know, and I'd also like to say that his detention pond or retention pond, where he's looking at putting that's probably going to be about 4 feet underwater. So that retention pond isn't going to do a heck of a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, good evening. My name is Crystal Utterholm. I live at 46502 Serenity Drive. I'm one of Rick's neighbors. He was the one who told me about this. I've lived at Serenity for 20 years. I have watched the river ebb and flow for 20 years. There's times when I go, please God, don't let it rain one more day. The only reason our homes don't flood is we are probably, I'd say, 15 to 20 feet higher than across. I am one of the houses that's right behind this development. If we change the capnography or the elevation in any way, shape, or form, my house, their house, we're all going to flood. I mean, this is, again, what Rick said, when it's January, February, March, when it's raining, when it's snowing, we see the land go straight across and we have a nice lake. And it's rambling rivers flowing down. This whole area floods. This is such a bad idea. All you have to do is drive down North Avenue, look at the property there where this sign is, and it's like all over the place, very low. They would have to truck in tons of dirt. All I know that the highest I've seen my property last year was the water got within 5 feet of my property. We're already seeing erosion on the river. Like I say, I've been there 20 years. I've already put dirt, several yards of dirt on the top of my land to build it up because we are getting that dip in the property with the rain and the snow and everything else. This is such a bad idea. Anybody that would buy one of those condos is going to have water problems. There is no way that little retention pond, it's in his picture, is ever going to be able to hold the amount of who knows how much water is going to be able to hold. But I'm telling you, all I see behind me for several months during the year is a lake. Come now, it's great now, but come at my house in January, February, and you will be in a riverland, because that's what this is. There's erosion. I like that he mentioned the animals, because we do have all that wildlife. I can't see, there's no way you're going to put that many homes in that small of an area. There's too much water. Our whole area, just look at Burning Tree Golf Course. It's a lake too in January and February and sometimes March. We deal with water all the time, and our properties have been protected because we're in that sweet spot where we just seem to miss it all. But we get pretty high too, and that scares me. I've lived here 20 years. I own my home. I pay taxes. I don't want this guy's property or development to end up flooding my property, and that's the only thing that I can see happening. And I worry about the people that are buying these homes. They're going to have water issues also. Atwell School is about half a mile down. I'm coming. They already have a traffic problem there. So 42 more people coming out of one exit is going to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Leslie McCabe. I live at 46253 North Avenue. I'm just going to read off of this. My name is Leslie McCabe. I own a home on the Clinton River, west side of North Avenue, just 7 parcels away from the site proposed for rezoning. I strongly oppose the requested rezoning for the unnecessary 7-building, 42 condominium development for this area. The site is located within a flood zone and is home to endangered species, including mussels and Indiana bats. Rezoning this area would put these animals, habitats, and nesting grounds at significant risk, which includes the trees and the river on this property. Such a rezoning request not only requires approval from the township, but also from the state and federal agencies, including EPA and the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, EGLE. I have contacted these agencies, and they will be conducting a further evaluation of the proposal if approved by the township. I urge our elected township board members to consider these environmental concerns carefully and to reject the rezoning request without requiring state and federal intervention for the unnecessary proposed condominium development that would put environmental issues and our endangered species and the Clinton River in danger. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? No one? Oh, here we go.
Kim Gens, 46700 Patnick Drive. I am at the dead end. I'm where it floods the most. 2005, it had flooded so bad, it was underneath the dead end sign. They tore down all those houses across from me. They were condemned. You developed this property, and it's just going to raise it up to my house even farther. It's going to come closer. I do not want to see that happen. Yes, there's a lot of wildlife. Love seeing the deer in the morning, turkeys, rabbits, everything. I just think it's a bad idea. It's not going to work. They'll just be flooded out, just like everybody else over there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Harold Walsh. I live at 46531 Oak Lawn, and that's where you got to get to. That is Dupre Street, which is right across from where they want to develop this. You cannot turn, if you're going down to turn left on 21 Mile Road, that lane is backed up past my street. If you dump more people into that street trying to get out in, it's a 5-lane road. It's already waiting to get out. So it's ridiculous in that part. Another part is we just got done having 21 Mile Road Bridge redone. And that water comes up to the bottom, if not over the top of it. You start backing it up with all this fill in, you're going to have that bridge washed out. Okay? It's just, they can't handle it. There's times when it's on the top of the bridge, let alone just to the bottom of the bridge. And I was going to talk about the fact that FEMA took care of 3 houses over there. You can't even build on the west side of Patnack. That area is over there. So I have no idea where this guy would want, this developer would want to have a river walk, where it would start, where it would finish. Because it would be finishing in these people's backyards, or it'd be starting in their backyards. I don't know how you'd get to it. And that area right there is underwater. You're going to have another 21 in Romeo Park. Every time it rains, it's going to be underwater. So you wouldn't have a river walk. There's no way you can have it. But this is a terrible idea. I've been there and I watched the water. As I understood, and I'm quoting somebody else's statement, North Avenue was moved over east because that's a floodplain area. And they couldn't build North Avenue exactly where they wanted it. And that had a lot less, you had more room over there to build it, but because it was a floodplain area, they couldn't. So now North Avenue is on at least 3 people's front porch right now because they had to move it to the east to build it. So that to me is, I've got a copy if he needs it for the floodplain. I also got it with a DEQ, states right in here, new residential construction is specifically prohibited in a floodway, and that's a floodway, and it's all right here. Okay, so it shouldn't even come up because you can't build there. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right, anyone? Oh, here we go.
My name is Heather Machado. I live at 23295 Dupree Street. I live off of Dupree Street where Harold has to go to come over to our house so that he can go off to go to North Avenue, which you cannot go left on North Avenue at any time between 3 o'clock and about 6:30 p.m. So I understand the issue of the flooding and everything like that. My main concern is pure safety. We've had our next door neighbor directly get hit because they used that middle turn lane to go left onto 21 Mile, directly get hit because they used that as a actual lane versus a turn lane. And there's absolutely no way safety-wise that if you add a 42-unit condominium unit right across from where we live on Dupree, that anybody is going to be able to turn left, to be able to turn right without any more accidents, fatalities, and with everybody that is involved with this, it's just too much of a hazard. We have an elementary school halfway down in North Avenue. We have Lance Cruz right around the corner of 21 Mile. There's absolutely no way, at a safety standpoint, that anybody should be considering this just for the safety of your citizens.
Thank you.
My name is Gary Mitter. I live at 23132 Dupre. I'm the corner house off of North Avenue, and I've watched all the traffic. I've been here for 35 years. I used to watch the old folks when it would rain a lot. The front of their house would flood. He'd keep a rowboat off the road. In fact, I let him keep it on my property for a little bit because when he couldn't drive back to his house, he had to take the rowboat to go from North Avenue to his house. If you close that or divert that, where's that water going to go under under North Avenue? It's just going to flood back way over there, and everybody else is going to flood there too. There's nowhere to route it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone? And I need a motion to close the public.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Oliver, seconded by Mr. Bentley. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Public portion is now closed. Mr. Box?
Well, typically I would answer questions. I didn't really hear any questions. I just heard a lot of concerns, so I don't think there's really any questions to answer.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
When we do these developments, are the developments basically self-contained? What I'm saying is they take care of their water problems, correct?
Correct. When they
So
go
it
through
doesn't
the,
affect neighbors or
when they go through the
surrounding
engineering process,
Yeah.
that is part of the engineering standards and engineering requirements, is that they are self-containing in the sense that any rainwater that would come on that property, they have sufficient size detention basin to handle that rain that would come on their property. That therefore it's not flooding upstream or downstream and impacting the neighbors. And with regards to that, I did want to point out, I know earlier when the applicant was discussing storage or detaining the water, he mentioned using underground storage. Just so we're clear, Macomb Township does not allow underground storage at this point. The engineering standards prohibit that. There has been talk about updating the standards and potentially allowing it, but at this time it is not allowed.
Okay. And then my next question is, if we don't do this conditional rezoning, if we deny it, and it stays R1, the developer can still put houses on this land, correct?
He can build single-family homes.
Yeah, single-family homes.
At three units
That's
per
pretty
acre. It may still be difficult to add any more homes than already exist, because in order to create new homes, he has to split the lots. And these lots were obviously created a long time ago. Current standards require lots not be more than 4 times longer than they are wide. If you were to split this off, you'd be creating a non-conforming lot, most likely. You might be able to parcel one off, but I wouldn't imagine too many more than that.
Okay. So he has the possibility of developing it within R1, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right. Commissioners, anything else?
Responses to the comments.
Well, he did. You responded to the comments. We got it. We get what you're saying. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we have a motion? You know what? I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion to recommend denial of the conditional rezoning from residential one-family R1 to residential family low-density R2L for North Avenue condominiums located on the north side of 21 Mile, Section 35, permanent parcel 0835 276 003. 0835 276 004.
I'll support.
Okay. Support by Mr. Bentley. Mr. Bentley, please call the roll.
Mr. Hardy.
Yes.
Mr. Bentley, yes. Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes.
Mr. Marley.
Yes.
Mr. Spatafora.
Yes.
Mr. Oliver.
Yes.
Okay. Motion is, the recommendation is denial for this conditional rezoning. Now it goes before the Board of Trustees. Okay. Questions? Are we good, you guys? All right, we're good. So thank you very much. Planning comments? Oh, no.
Nope.
Huh? Yeah. We'll give you a minute to vacate if you'd like. The rest of it's just kind of...
Public comments are next.
Oh, public comments are next if you want to comment on something other than... Yeah, non-agenda items.
Thanks for coming.
Mike, tell them they gotta leave.
Yeah.
I mean, they can conjugate, but they gotta leave.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long night, so if you could take your meetings out in the hallway so we can finish, that would be great. Thank you.
The only thing that current zoning says is a single family.
You could have still brought something. How are you?
He's back and forth.
Yeah.
Back and forth. He comes in and out.
Okay, see you later.
Nice seeing you.
All right, let's continue, everybody. Public comments on non-agenda items? Well, place just emptied out, so we're good.
Even Stephanie left.
Commissioner comments? Anybody? Anyone? Oh, Mr. Spatafora, yes.
Just had to drag it out, Dan. Just had to drag it out.
I wanted to take the moment to salute our township board for whether it was a large or the small part they played, along with planning and along with the Macomb County Department of Roads, for us allowing to see the day where Garfield Road between 23 and 25 Mile Road opened up as of this morning.
Hallelujah.
It was one of the first traffic, I don't want to say pedestrians, but I was, one of the first motorists on there. Close to where I work, so I cut my drive time quite a bit, and then I took it coming to the meeting tonight, the entire stretch going northbound. So thank you for being responsible, working with, obviously, the Department of Roads, the cost sharing, and I think it was responsible dollars put at work to see another accomplishment done for the betterment of our community. Thank you.
The wheels do turn. Slowly, but they turn.
24 in Garfield.
Okay.
Anyone else? Then we'll go to the Board of Trustee comments. Mr. Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. I'm going to make this real quick. Couple quick things. We are, the township approved to spend at Wallenberg Park, we're going to put all new playscape, all new everything, $726,000 and some change. And that's going to start this spring. We got a grant for some street lighting, so the township's gonna, and along with the grant, the money will be put towards street lighting, all LEDs. So we're gonna update everything to LEDs, and that'll be a process. It'll take a few years, but it's gonna happen. So you'll start seeing your street lights, LEDs. In the subdivisions also. The last thing, we got a grant for election equipment, and it was a $60,000 grant.
Awesome.
And that's it.
Okay. All right, ZBA, Mr. Tuckfield.
Mr. Chairman, we've had a meeting since our last planning commission meeting, but I don't believe there's anything new to update. Don't think there's anything new to update.
Okay. And Planning Department.
I just want to remind everyone that in October, the first meeting is October 1st for the Planning Commission. The second meeting was originally October 15th. Just a reminder that that was moved to October 22nd because there was a conflict with election training. So just want to make sure everybody is aware that the second meeting in October is October 22nd.
Got it. All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Spatafora, supported by Mr. Tuckfield. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? We're good.
9:17.
9:17.